Hello friends, welcome to part 8 of this video series. In this video, we will see how to configure different types of DNS zones in Infoblox. We will also touch base on some of the key concepts like recursion, NS groups and stealth configuration as part of this session. Please note this is a continuation video and hence before watching this, I strongly recommend you all to watch part 7, that DNS Demystified, of the same video series. So let's get started. For this demo, we will be using two Infoblox DNS, basically two Infoblox appliances. So we will be using dns2.infoblox.local domain whose IP address is 192.168.0.135 and dns1.infoblox.local domain, and that's the FQDN and this is the IP. Okay, so these are the two Infoblox appliances. So this is pretty much a completely new setup. There is nothing, there is no DNS, DHCP, anything is run, nothing is, no data is there. So I just created these two VMs just a couple of minutes ago for this, for recording this. And the only thing that I've done so far is I have enabled the DNS service, or I have started the DNS service on both of this in both of these DNS Infoblox appliances. So yeah, but I'll also, if you have followed my previous videos, then I have already explained how to do this. But yeah, if I need to restart, if I need to start any of the service like DNS, DHCP, we need to go to data management, and then depending on the service, we need to either select DHCP or DNS. In this case, it's DNS, and then we need to go to the members and select the appliance or the DNS or the Infoblox appliance in which you want to start the DNS service, and then select that and click on start from the toolbar. But since it's already running, the start option is grayed out. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to do is to create an authoritative DNS zone. So like I've already mentioned in this video, like this is a continuation video, so I will not be touch basing or covering the theory of part of this one. So I'll be to save time, we'll be looking only on the configuration side of it. But yeah, if you have any doubts regarding any of these zones like authoritative DNS zones or delegation zone or forward zone or stub zone, please refer the previous video. Okay, so what we're going to do is first we're going to create an authoritative DNS zone. So for that, we need to click on the drop down next to this plus button and click on authoritative zone and select the first option, and here we'll give the name of the DNS zone. So in this case, I'll give X. Okay, so this is my own, this is a domain which I own. So as you can see, this is a domain which I own, and that's what I'm going to add in here. So I give this name in here and then next. Okay, in this, for the time being, we'll use the third option. I'll be explaining what is a name server group in a bit, but for the time being, we'll use this third option, use this set of name server. So this is where we are specifying what my name server for this particular DNS zone going to be. And now when I click on this drop down next to this plus, I have these options: grid primary, grid secondary, external primary, external secondary. So for the time being, I'm going to use grid primary because I'm going, and from here I click select and I click on add. Okay, so now what I have done is, and the reason why I have selected grid primary is because even though this is a single appliance, I have installed grid license onto this Infoblox appliance, making it a grid. Even though it doesn't have any members joined to this particular grid, it itself acts as a grid master. So since we are going to add my primary DNS server within this grid, I'm using that first option, that is selecting the type as grid primary. And after that, once that is selected, you can click on next. And if you want to set any extensible attribute, you can do. If not, in my case, I'm not adding anything, so I'm just clicking on save and close. Okay, so now if you see, we got a prompt that to restart my DNS service. So it says that the configuration change requires a service restart to take effect. So what happens is, whenever you make any changes, or if you add or delete a zone or make any changes onto the DNS service, there is actually a configuration file which holds all the information or the configuration related information. So that file will be updated. So now once the file gets updated, for those changes to get reflected, a restart of the DNS service is required. And that's what it's prompting us to do, and we'll just click on restart, and we will click restart here also. Okay, so what we have done is we have added this extremefitness.com, a DNS zone, as an authoritative DNS zone into this appliance, that is this dns2.infoblox.local domain. And to confirm if everything has been done successfully, let's go to members. I've told you about this configuration file, right? So let's view that configuration file. So just click on this drop down and click on configuration, view configuration. So this file contains the complete configuration of my that particular appliance which runs the DNS service. I will not be explaining each of these fields, because that's not the that's not what the actual purpose of this video is. So we'll just go down and we'll just confirm the zone that we just added, this extremefitness.com, is present or not. And in this case, we see that it's there and its type is master. So that means from this we know that this zone is there, and also its type is master. So that means we have configured this as a primary authoritative zone. Okay, and yep. So now we have done that. So this is how we add a authoritative DNS zone into Infoblox. So now what we will do is we will also configure a secondary DNS server to this particular zone. So for that, what we need to do is, basically we are adding one more name server, and in that and we are defining that name server as a secondary name server. So for that, there are two things that we need to do. Okay, even before that, let's do one thing. Let's get into this zone and let's create some records. So let's say I'm creating two A records. So I'll just add host 1 and click on save and close. At the same time, a record host 2, and these are just random IPs that I'm just giving, and I click save and close. So now you can see that there is an SOA record, there is an NS record, then there are two A records which I created. These are the two records which gets auto created when we are creating the zone. So now since we have added the record, so now let's go to the adding of the second name server, which we'll configure as a secondary name server. So for that, select that zone and click on this button, which is the edit button, You can also access the edit button from the toolbar. So just click on that edit, go to the name server section, and in here we will configure. So if you see here, there is external secondary and grid secondary. In this case, since this Infoblox appliance is a completely separate Infoblox appliance and we have not joined this particular appliance into this grid, hence we will use external secondary. Okay, I will explain that one more time. The reason why we are selecting this external secondary is because we are the name server or the secondary name server that we are going to add into this is not part of this grid. It is a completely different appliance which is part of its own grid. So that's the reason why we are using this option, external secondary. And in here it says name and address. So name is the FQDN. So the FQDN is this one. So let me copy it from here. And the IP address is DNS one. This is the IP address. Okay. And you see this option stealth. So I'm not selecting this option for the time being. I'll come back to this one. I know after after we do this configuration, I'll be explaining what stealth is. So yeah, for the time being, I'm just adding the name and address, and I'm clicking on add. And also you see there is a TSIG section. So TSIG, again, I'm not covering that now. So basically, on a high level, just if you want to understand what TSIG is, so it's like if you want to have some sort of security, or rather than just this two DNS servers to have zone transfer. If you want to have some sort of security, then we can use TSIG and we can provide a key, and only if that key information, if my secondary or the other DNS server provides the same key, then only the zone transfer will happen. So basically it's a way in which we can secure things or secure the zone transfer. But for the time being, I'm not using that. And I click on add and I click on save and close. So now, since we have made a DNS related change, restart, we are prompted to do this restart. So let's do that. Okay. So now what we have done is we added that secondary, we added one more name server to this extremefitness.com. So now what we're going to do is we are going to go to this DNS server, and we need to add the same zone. Here also we'll add it as an authoritative zone, but the only difference is that in here we are going to add as a secondary, because we are going to create a secondary name server for that same extremefitness.com. So for that, we click on this drop down, click on select the same authoritative zone, because even whether it's primary or secondary, it it's the we use that authoritative zone. So we'll use the first option and we'll use the same name, and we click on next. And here also we'll use the third option, use this set of name server. But in here, what we're going to do is we are going to select external primary, because the primary of this, or the master of this zone, is external to this DNS server. So we'll select that option and we will give this name. That is the FQDN of my primary or my the master DNS server, and in here we'll give the IP address. The IP address is this one. So this is where, like, we need to, if we are going to secure this using TZIC, then we need to ensure that the same key is added in here, which matches the key which we have already added in our in the other DNS server. But for the time being, I'm not using any form of security, so I'm just click on add. So we have added the external primary. So now we need to add this DNS as my secondary. Okay, because that's what we were planning to do here. But since this DNS server is part of this grid, we will be using grid secondary. We will select that and we'll click on add. So now what we have done is we have added this 192.168.0.135, which is my external primary, which is actually this DNS server in which we have initially configured this extremefitness.com, and this has a master copy or a read-write copy of that zone, and that's what we have provided in here. And in here we have added this same extremefitness.com as an authoritative zone, but as a secondary zone. And we are going to click save and close, and again we are opted, we got this prompt to restart my the DNS service, and let's do that. Okay, so now that's done. So now if I just click on that, it's saying that the data is not available. Check if the primary is configured and at least one of the secondaries online. So what we will do is we'll just click on refresh, because it takes some time for it to contact the primary and then get the data pulled in. So after the refresh, what we could see is that we are able to retrieve all the records which was present in this in this Infoblox appliance, which was having this, in which we have initially configured this extreme fitness. So that means all these records are now present in this one. So that means the zone transfer was successful. So this is how we configure a secondary. And when you configure a secondary, by default, if we have configured it correctly, just like the way I showed you, then it will automatically do an AXFR, or it will do a zone transfer, and it will query the serial number of the SOA. It will check for the serial number. It will do an SOA query. It will check for the serial number, and it will take everything, because in this case, since we just freshly added it, there is no records. So it will just pull everything that was there or that is there from this master DNS server, okay, or from the DNS server which holds the master copy of Extreme Fitness, or the which has the primary copy of the extremefitness.com. Okay, so that was about how to configure an authoritative zone, and how to add a secondary zone in a different DNS server, and then using zone transfer get those records in here. I hope that's clear. So now, before the next thing is what we have learned is how to configure DNS zone. So then we also saw how to configure secondary zone and then perform a zone transfer. Okay, but before we go to the delegation zone, let's quickly look into these concepts, like what is recursion, what is NS group, and what is stealth. So recursion I've already covered in my previous video. So recursion means if it's an option that we need to set on my DNS server if and only if that DNS server is expected to send queries to the outside world. So when I say outside world, that is if I send a query to my, let's say I have, okay, let's take this example. Okay, so if I send a query to this particular DNS server, and if I am expecting my DNS server to get me an answer of something which it doesn't know, like for example, if I'm trying to query a zone called, let's say, google.com, and obviously since this DNS server is not authoritative, in which that means I don't have google.com configured as an authoritative zone in this DNS server, if it can't, it can't give out, it cannot give a direct response back to me, and hence it has to query for that. If I need to get an answer to that, this particular DNS server has to go out and fetch that answer for me. And if I need to configure my DNS server to do that, then I need to enable an option called recursion. So that's recursion all about, so that's what recursion is. Okay, now the second thing is NS. So we will be enabling recursion, and I will show you how to enable recursion in Infoblox when we are going to the delegation zone. And the second is NS group. Okay, so the NS group, let's me go here. So basically what it does is, basically it acts like a, it acts like a, what do you call, a placeholder. So let's say I have in my, so this is just a home lab kind of setup, so I have only two DNS servers. But let's say you're running in your production, there would be like hundreds of DNS servers, right? So it's not feasible when every time you're configuring or you're creating an authoritative DNS server, you need to associate that set of DNS, that set of DNS servers, like in this case, if you go here, we created, so in here we have like two DNS servers, right? Like one is configured as my primary and the other one is configured as my secondary. But in the actual production environment, there will be like 15-20 secondary servers for the same zone, so that even if one of the, so that depending on the load of that particular domain and so many other factors for redundancy and all those things, it's always, in production environment there will be like multiple externals, I mean secondaries. So rather than just doing like this, if I need to again add a secondary, then I'll go click external secondary and then give the name and the the FQDN and the address. It's actually a kind of a a manual effort, right? So to mitigate that, what we can do is we can create this name server groups. I'll just say my NS group 1, and in here I can just add, keep adding my, it's like a template in which I'm already defining the name server or the DNS servers, saying like, okay, my grid primary is this, and then I will add a bunch of external secondaries. Let's say I add like 5 or 10. So once I add all those things, so let's say my NS2, and then I give some IP address like 4.4.4.4, add, and then let's say I add one, let's add one more, NS5. Okay, so in this case I've added one grid primary and two secondaries, external secondaries, and I do save and close. So the advantage of doing like this is because next time if I'm going to create a zone, let's say I'm going to create another authoritative DNS zone called some xyz.com, I can use this option and if I use this NS group 1, automatically all those 3 DNS servers which I have defined in my NS1 group will get associated to my zone. So rather than me manually coming here and adding those servers in here, I have created a group in which I have pre-added those set of DNS servers. So this way I can save a lot of time when I have to add multiple DNS zones, and I can just attach this NS group or the name server group in one go, rather than me manually having to add all the individual DNS servers while adding the DNS zone. I hope that's clear. And another one big advantage that it provides is, let's say if I wanted to remove, if I have like 100 zones in my production grid, and if I want to just remove one DNS zone which could be which could have got decommission. So if I need to remove one very specific DNS server from all my zones, if I had given it manually, then I have to edit each of the zones and then remove that. But if I have used a name server group, I just need to go here, edit this one, and remove this. Let's say NS5 is what I want to get rid of. Then I can just do a save and close, and it will automatically get reflected to all the DNS zones, all the 100 DNS zones which has used this particular name server group. So hope that's clear. So the next thing was stealth. So stealth, I'll show you what it is. So if I go to I have this option called stealth. So before I explain what is stealth, I'll do one thing. I'll query So I'll do an NS lookup, and I will just change my DNS server to this one, 191.135 set type equals NS. And if I give this name of my zone, so I see that I get 2 DNS servers, that is dns2.infoblox.localdomain and this one. So these are the 2 name servers. But let's say if I wanted to hide my master DNS server from the external world, because that's a read-write copy of my if that's the DNS server which holds a read-write copy of that extremefitness.com, right? So if I need to if I don't want the external world to know the details of my master DNS or the master name server, then I can use that stealth option. So now if I enable, or if I'm selecting that stealth option checkbox and I click on save, and if I click on save and close, now again it will ask for a restart. Okay, so now whatever configuration, that stealth configuration that I've added, it has, it was updated. And now if I do the same query again, you see that the one that I given as stealth is not showing now. So that means it is only showing my dns1.infoblox.local domain, which is my secondary name server. So that's the advantage of using that stealth option. If I want to hide my DNS or my name server from an external world, then I can use that stealth option. And yeah, so I hope that's you got an idea what it does. Okay, so now moving forward, so the next thing in our list is delegation. So what we have covered so far is we configured an authoritative DNS zone, and we also configured a secondary authoritative DNS zone, and then using zone transfer, we ensure that all those records were added automatically into my secondary onto my the other DNS server in which I was having the secondary copy of the extreme fitness zone. Okay, so the next thing is delegation zone. So let's try to create a delegation zone. Okay. Okay, but since I have only two DNS servers, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to remove this external secondary. Okay, the reason it was showing us this error is because if I need to have at least one DNS server which is not having, which is not stealth or which is not in stealth, so that's why. So I need to save this. Now I'm able to save those changes. So from here also what I'll do is I'll just delete that secondary zone. So I'll delete this. Okay, so now this extremefitness.com, this zone is only present in this DNS server, and it has only a primary DNS server. It doesn't have any secondary because we deleted it from here. So now what we'll do is we will create a delegation. So the delegation means, let's say this extremefitness.com, this website got so popular. So basically it's a fitness kind of app in which you will be able to register and then log in, and then you can log in all your the workout information, and it tracks your workouts, it tracks your the food that you eat, then you can even get the calorie information of the the food that you consume. Then there is a community tab in which you can see how you stack up against the other users who is using the same, and you can track your weight. And let's say this becomes a huge hit, okay, and in a course of, let's say, 5 to 10 years, then I need to I'm segregating this website or this domain into region specific. So for that, let's say I am creating two regions, let's say Asia and Europe. Okay, so for that I'm just creating a delegation of this domain, and I'm creating asia.extremefitness.com and europe.extremefitness.com. So basically by delegation, I have already explained what delegation is and in my previous video, so please go check that out if you have any questions regarding the theory part of it. Okay, so in here what I'm going to do is I'm click on that extremefitness.com, and I click on this plus, the drop down next to plus, and I have this option called delegation. So if you see, this extreme fitness is already present in here. So whatever I'm adding, so it will be like asia.extremefitness.com. Okay, so now I click next. Okay, so now I will say that my name server, the name server is who is the primary name server or the secondary or the authoritative. Okay, it could be both primary and secondary. So basically here what we need to provide is who has this zone configured as an authoritative zone. So I have not configured it yet, but okay, let me do one thing. Let me add it first, that zone in here. So in here I'm going to, so this is my second DNS server, that is the dns1.infoblox.local domain, and in here I'm clicking next and I'm copying the same name. So it's like asia.extremefitness.com, and I'm just adding this. Okay, so I have created this asia.extremefitness.com as an authoritative DNS zone in this DNS server. So let me restart it. Okay, so now if I will also add a record, let's say host 5, and save and close. Let me add one more record in here. Name host 6. Okay, so I have added two records into this one, and now going back, I'm creating a delegation. I'm saying that any queries that comes and hits my DNS server. So this, when I say my DNS server, this DNS server, the dns2.infoblox.local domain, should now be, so this should, I mean, I am not responsible for this zone anymore, and this set of name servers are responsible for that particular domain, that is asia.extremefitness.com. For that, I need to provide the FQDN of this DNS server. So let me copy that and put it over here. Let me also copy that. Okay, so we do that and we do save and close. So one thing you have noted is that when we created this delegation, I was not prompted to do a DNS restart or the service restart. The reason is because whenever we are creating a delegation, there is no change that gets reflected onto the DNS configuration file. So this is only so the statement that I just told you is only applicable when you are creating a delegation zone. For all the other zones like the authoritative zones or forward zones or stub zones, there will be a change in the DNS configuration file, and to get those changes reflected, we need to restart the DNS service. Yeah, but because it's a delegation, then that restart is not required. Okay, so now what we have done is we have configured this as a delegation, and we are saying that, okay, now I don't have any control over this asia.extremefitness.com. Any records within this asia.extremefitness.com needs to be resolved by this DNS server, because this is authoritative now. So let's test this out. Okay, but so that means by logic, what I'm going to do is, if I'm going to query this DNS server for this any records which is within asia.extremefitness.com, this particular DNS server should go and send those queries to this DNS server, and from here we get a from this will give a response. From here, this particular DNS server will give a response back to this DNS server, and from here we will get, it will return that response back to the client, that means to us. Okay, but before we do that, so that's where the recursion comes into picture. So now what we are expecting this DNS server to do is we are expecting this DNS server to forward because now it doesn't know it cannot resolve any records within asia.extremefitness.com. For that, it has to send those queries to this DNS server, which is having this asia.extremefitness.com configured as an authoritative zone. And to do that, what we need to do is we need to enable recursion on this DNS server, because without that, even that request will not even go there. So for that, what we need to do is click on edit. So there are a few places in which ways in which you can do that. You can do it on the DNS on the grid level, or you can do it on the member level. So let's do it on the member level. So for that, you need to click on edit that particular members, come to this queries tab, and this is the option that you have to enable, allow recursion. And if I don't select any of this, there is an an explicit allow. So if you just select this allow recursion option, it means that it is allowing everything, okay, even though it says none. So we'll do a save and close. That's fine. It says that in my logging I have enabled this DNS queries, and it might affect the performance, but yeah, since it's a home lab kind of setup, that's fine. Okay, so now there is that restart being prompted. Okay, so now we have enabled recursion. So now let's try to query our DNS server and see if we are able to get a response to a record which is in host file. So that is host file dot but this would fail. The reason I'm showing you this, so that, okay, but before that, let me change, because right now we have set type as NS. So now let's set type as a record, because we are querying a record. And now if I give host file dot, okay, by the way, it's asia.extremefitness.com, and we are querying this or sending this query to 192.168.0.135 DNS server. So now if I do that, it says that I'm getting this error. Okay, the reason I want to explain to you why we are hitting, because this is a very common scenario. This is a very common error, or which whenever we are using this delegation, or when we are using this Stub Zone, this is something really common. So that's why I purposefully made this. And now let me tell you two things: why we got this error, and the second thing is how we can fix it. So the question, for answering the first question, why we got this error, the reason is pretty simple. So if we go here, extremefitness.com, so let's first go to the delegation, and in the delegation zone, even though we have provided the DNS server's FQDN and its IP address, it still need to resolve this dns1.infoblox.local domain. It cannot just pick, even though we have provided the IP address in here, it cannot just pick the IP address like this. It still needs to resolve the dns1.infoblox.local domain. So first we will check if our DNS server can even, is able to resolve that. So let's do one thing. Let's try to. Okay, I've copied that and let me, right spacing is wrong. Okay, so dns1.infoblox.local domain is what we are trying to resolve. Okay, due to some reason it's not. So this is the problem. It's not able to resolve this DNS server, because if it's not able to resolve this DNS server, then obviously it cannot send the queries from this DNS server to this DNS server. So that's the reason why we are getting this. We got that error when we try to resolve this one, hostfi.asia.fitness.com. Okay, so now how we can fix it? So fixing it, there are different ways. All we need to do is, somehow or the other, we need to ensure that this DNS server is able to resolve this DNS server's FQDN. Okay, so I'll show you a very simple but effective fix of how we can do that, and that is by just creating this dummy authoritative DNS zone, and we will just use this domain, infoblox.local domain. I'll show you what happens if we do this. Okay, so now we are adding this, and it's restarting. So now what we can see is, if we click on this infoblox.local domain, there are 2 records, and these are auto created. We didn't even create it. How it got auto created is because these are glue records of my NS record, which was present in this. So here also there is a DNS2.infoblox, and this one has, for Asia, the NS record is DNS1.infoblox.local domain. So for both of this, there is no corresponding A record. Okay, these are the auto created NS records. And now if I go in here, now I could see that there are 2 A records, which we refer it as glue records. Okay, so if you Google that. A glue record is an IP address of a name server at a domain name registry. Glue records is a fundamental part because they help to resolve DNS server at the core level. Okay, so yeah, I hope you got a high level idea what a glue record is. And if I'm able to resolve this, so see, I don't actually need to add this infoblox.local domain, but if somehow, if my this particular DNS server can resolve this. So another way of doing it is at the grid level. If I click on edit the grid properties, there is something called DNS resolver. Okay, so I can enable a DNS resolver, and I can just give some DNS server's IP address in here, which my grid will use to resolve the DNS queries. And if that particular DNS server can resolve this name, mean both this DNS1.infoblox.local domain and DNS2.infoblox.local domain, then I don't need to add this zone. But yeah, for me, this is the easiest fix, so that's why I have added that. And now if you are, we will see that particular two records, the blue records, got added. Okay, so now let's verify if what the fix that we done is actually helping us to resolve the host 5.asia.extremefitness.com. Okay, so let's try to do that. And now we see that we are able to resolve that, and also we got a non-authoritative response. The reason being, we are querying this DNS2.infoblox.local domain, which has only extremefitness.com configured as an authoritative DNS zone. But since asia.extremefitness.com is configured as an authoritative DNS zone in this DNS server, that's the reason why when we queried this, this DNS2.infoblox.local domain, we got the response back because the delegation is working now, and we got a non-authoritative answer. So I hope you are clear on how to create the delegation zones. So yeah, one thing you need to be, keep in mind is that whenever you're creating, you're dealing with delegation, always ensure that you are able to resolve the name server's IP address. If not, then you will hit the same error, just like I showed you. And yeah, the simple fix would be to just create a zone, or somehow make that DNS resolution work. Okay, so moving forward, the next zone that we are going to configure is a forward zone, and I would say this is the most simplest of zones. So basically, forward zone, what we do is okay, so let's go here and click on the plus, and then drop down, click forward zone. So what forward zone do is, like, let's say we say some abc.com. Okay, but even before that, let me go ahead and delete this one. I'll tell you why I'm deleting this. Okay, and I'm also restarting. So now again, I don't have any glue records with me for the two name servers, that is DNS2.infoblox.local domain and DNS1. Okay, so now again, I don't have any glue records. But so now let's go ahead and configure a forward zone. So let's say some random name, abc.com. Okay, and in here I specify the name, so where I'm going to forward it. So in this case, I'm going to forward this to this server, because I'm going to create ABC as an authoritative zone in here. abc.com. Next, with primary, select that. Okay, so now I have configured ABC as an authoritative zone for this DNS1.infoblox.local domain. Okay, so and hence I've created a forward zone, and I've given this name and the IP address. Okay, so I give this IP, and I will not change anything, so I'll just click save and close. Okay, so what I have done is I have created abc.com as a forward zone. So let me do one thing, because I don't know why, I that a specific page was skipped, or a specific tab was skipped. So I want you guys to know what exactly or how to configure a forward zone. So for that, again, I'll show one more time. Forward zone, click on that and click on in here, and here we give abc.com. And in here we give and the IP address. These are the name of my forwarder, okay, to which I'm going to forward. And this is the members. Okay, so this is something, last time when I was adding it, I just clicked on save and close. That's why you didn't see this page. So this is where I'm telling I'm telling Infoblox, or I'm configuring which DNS server is, because this is a grid, right? So this can have one DNS server, as just like in the case that we are, in my home lab, I have only one appliance as part of this grid, but this can also have 50 if it's a production. So I need to specifically tell which all servers should host this forward zone. Okay, for that I need to select that. So in here I have only one DNS server, so that's why I've just selected that and I clicked on next, and now I can do save and close. So now when I added this abc.com as a forward zone, like I told you before, anything other than delegation, like whether you are adding a forward zone, stub zone, or authoritative zone, there would be a change in the DNS configuration file, and hence you need to restart. Okay, so what we have done is we have configured ABC as a forward zone, and since we have removed that infoblox.local domain, for which will help us to resolve those two names, we have removed it. So now let's see if I'm able to query a record in abc.com. So for that, let's say host 8.8.8.8. So we created a record in here, and we have abc.com configured as a forward zone in dns2.infoblox.local domain, and this is where it is having abc configured as a authoritative DNS zone. Okay, so now let's go back to NS lookup. So now we need to resolve host 8.abc.com. Okay, so it took some time. That's why we got the initial, it didn't give a response within 2 seconds, but yeah, we got a response, and now we got this 8.8.8 IP address, which from here. So one important thing I want you guys to understand is, whenever we are dealing with forward zone, then it is not necessary to, it will not use the FQDN to resolve that, and only after the IP gets resolved, then only the query will be forwarded. No, it doesn't work that way. With forward zone, so to explain that, instead of right now I have given DNS2, which is the correct FQDN of my DNS server. So instead of this one, let me edit. Okay, I don't think so I can edit. But instead of this, if I had given any name, that as long as my IP is correct, then it will just forward, those queries will just be forwarded to that IP address. So that's the key takeaway here. So when we go to the stub zone, again, I will be explaining, or I'll telling you the difference between a forward zone and a stub zone. But yeah, for the forward zone, it's only the IP address that matter. Whatever IP address we give in there, it will be just forwarded to that IP address. And if that server can respond, then you will get a response back. If, let's say, for example, if this we are forwarding it to this server or this DNS server, and if this DNS server doesn't have abc.com, then you will not be getting a response back. So yeah, that's why forward zones are very simple, but that, you know, that's not a in a production environment, that's not something that's recommended, and that the best approach is using a stub zone. I'll be explaining why that stub zone is having an advantage over a forward zone. But yeah, from a configuration wise perspective or standpoint, this is how you configure a forward zone, and this is how you configure it. And like I said, the name need not be resolved, so it just forwards the queries to that IP address. That's all. So I hope you understood how to configure forward zone. And the last topic of this session, that would be how to configure a stub zone. So again, for the theory, I have already covered that the difference between a stub zone and a forward zone in the previous video. So I strongly recommend you to go watch that video even before watching this one. Okay, so now let's go to stub zone. Okay, so we now, to add a stub zone, again we need to click on this plus icon, click on the stub zone, and even before that, let's create an authoritative. So in here we'll create an authoritative zone, just like we created abc.com as an authoritative. Here also we'll create it as an authoritative zone. So let's say call it xyz.com, and we will configure as a grid primary. Next, save and close. So let's go ahead and add some record. So host 9 and okay, so what we have done is, we in this dns1.infoblox.local domain, we created xyz as an authoritative zone, and we have added one record, host 9. Okay, so now we go here and we create a stub forward mapping zone. Okay, we select the first option and we give the same name, xyz.com, and in here we specify which are my which are the DNS server which has this xyz configured as an authoritative zone. So that's this one. So let me do it from here. Okay, so I did that, and then I click on next. So again, this is where, just like when we created the forward zone, we had to define which are my DNS servers which is going to hold this stub zone. So in my case, I have only one DNS server or one appliance, but in a production environment there will be like so many, and in that you have to precisely select which are the DNS servers which is going to hold this XYZ as a stub zone. So that's what this this particular selection is all about. Okay, and then we do a save and close. And again, we need, since it is stub zone, we again have to restart. We did a restart. Okay, so now we have configured xyz.com as a stub zone, and in here, and now let's see if we can resolve host 9 dot xyz.com. Okay, and we are trying to query against our DNS server, that is this one. So here we are setting this DNS server as 0.135, and this 135 is my this DNS server, that is DNS2. Okay, so now I'm trying to resolve host.xyz.com, and again I should get a serve failed error. And I think this time around you would be able to guess what could have gone wrong. Yes, it is it's not able to resolve the dns1.infoblox.local domain. Okay, and that's the reason why we got this error. So let's go to the recycling bin and see if we okay, so what I've done is when I deleted that zone, it goes into the recycling bin, and I'm just recovering my zone from there. So now you can see I have infoblox.local domain, and now those two glue records is present in this one. So now I'm able to resolve this one, dns1.infoblox.local domain. So now if I do this query again, see, I got a response back, a non-authoritative answer, because it's a stub zone, and the authoritative zone resides in this DNS server, and that's why we got a non-authoritative answer. But yeah, we got the response back. So this was all about how to configure the different types of zones. But again, I'm not covering any theory in this because I've already done that. And if you have any doubt regarding what is the advantage of using a stub zone compared to a forward zone, please refer the previous video. Okay, so let's have a quick recap of what we have learned so far. So yeah, so we have learned about how to configure an authoritative DNS zone, and then we quickly we also went through this concept of recursion, NS group, and stealth, and then we configured a secondary zone, and also saw how the zone transfer is getting, how the zone transfer enables or transfers all the DNS records from the primary authoritative DNS server to the secondary DNS server. Then we learned how to configure a delegation zone, and we also learned that it's very important to ensure that the DNS resolution of the name server itself works, so that if I'm not able to resolve the name server, then the delegation would fail. Then we learned about the configuring forward zone, and we also learned that with forward zone, it doesn't matter, the name resolution doesn't need to happen. All it does is that it will just forward all your queries to the IP address that you have provided while configuring that forward zone. That's all. And if that server in which you're forwarding can provide you an answer, then you will get, you'll be able to return that answer or response back to the client, or else it will fail. And the last one is about the stub zone. Stub zone, there are some advantages compared to a forward zone, and those advantages I have not mentioned in this video, but I have provided in the previous videos. Please do watch that. And yep, so I think that's all for today. I hope you found this video informative, and yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.